Hello, everyone. Welcome again to another edition of Big Kris Live, the live stream, and then the podcast. You can subscribe on all the usual podcast places, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, of course, DeanBlundell.com, our podcast network host. And thank you for those who are tuning in live to the live stream via Twitter, via YouTube, and also via Facebook on the Big Kris Radio Facebook fan page. And this episode, as all episodes are, brought to you by our partners and friends at Retrokat Gaming. You can play over 8,000 games from more than 15 of your favorite retro gaming systems, all on one handheld device. Retrokat.ca /BigKrisLive. Use Kris with a K and use the promo code BigKrisLive as well for $10 off.
Shipped from Ontario right to your door. Shop online today at Retrokat.ca or choose same-day pickup in the GTA. Retrokat.ca. Let's get nostalgic.
All right, let's get on with the show, as they say. I'm going to move him over to the screen behind me now. Please welcome to the podcast, John-Angus McDonald of the Trews. Hello.
Hello, Kris. How you doing?
Great to have you back on, man.
You still go by Big Kris?
Yeah, I know.
Because you're not as big as you once were. So are you small Kris, medium Kris?
Regular size Kris.
Regular Kris. Kris with a K.
I think I'm still big. I think I was just venti sized, like at Starbucks before.
Right.
Now I'm
so
just
now you're
regular.
Yeah. Tall.
Yeah, tall. That's it. Yeah, tall Kris.
Tall Kris.
We opened up the podcast with a shot of me in studio with you conducting me. That was the recording session for Highway of Heroes. And also shout out to Eric Kilpatrick. He was the other piper in the studio that day.
What a fond memory, man. I mean, I haven't seen a lot of pictures or anything from that session. It was kind of maybe just before we all had cameras on our phones. I don't know, but I don't have much of a catalog of that session, which proved to be a pretty important session, in hindsight, just seeing how the song, how it went on to do. And, being from Antigonish, Nova Scotia, I know about like 50 to 100 pipers in Nova Scotia. But of course, the song was recorded in Toronto. I don't know a whole lot of pipers in the GTA. Certainly didn't in 2009 or whenever that was.
Yeah.
And you and I we jammed on stage. We'd done Long Way to the Top. We'd done some other fun bagpipe stuff. We have a song called Can't Stop Laughing with some bagpipes. So I called you up, and I think you drove down. You were still in Kingston then, right?
Yeah, I was in Kingston like 5 times. I've worked in every radio property in Kingston I've worked at. And then at that time, I was working for the Canadian Forces, actually. So
That's right.
That was my 3.5, 4-year hiatus with the mission in Afghanistan. So it made perfect sense for me to get involved with that song, too. It was like everything just lined up perfectly.
It was great synergy, and we really appreciate you coming down. You brought one of your students with you, and we multi-tracked you. For those who don't know, it's taking Kris and his the other piper and turning them into like 30 pipers just by doing it over and over again. Yeah. So it sounds like the Scots are coming down the hill during the war or something,
Yeah.
But anyway, it turned out really great, and what a fond memory and photographic evidence. You'll have to send me that.
I will. Yeah, definitely. I'll pass it on to you after the fact. And then the other thing I remember about that day, I will admit this, I was not playing a lot during that time. So I remember just really struggling. I promise my rhythm is a lot better. You were conducting me because I was having trouble getting the rhythm of it all. And
well, it's an interesting session because we didn't have a drum band either.
Yeah.
So we turned you and the other piper into, what's his name again? Sorry,
Eric.
I just forgot his name.
Eric was his name.
You and Eric, we turned you guys into 30 pipers, but we turned just like me and Jack and Colin and Sean and, a bunch of guys with snare drums. We turned ourselves into a drum band. So it was all done very haphazard, and it's kind of cool that it ended up sounding so legit, and credit to Gordie Johnson who produced the session and everything else. But the whole thing was kind of cobbled together in an interesting manner, but no apologies needed, man. I think it turned out awesome.
I just remember struggling. Like we took about, I had between, and Eric, the younger player, he was like a one-take wonder, and then I had my take up, and I'm like, I was panicking. I'm not used to playing with a click track, and I was freaking out.
Right.
But
no sweat.
But now that I've lived here in the GTA for the last 4.5 years, I built a bagpipe dojo in the basement of my house.
Okay.
And I also have. I've just been taking lessons once a week. I've been really playing bagpipes like crazy, man. So it's
awesome.
It's cool to connect with you. I'm just gonna fix something right behind me here on the screen. I forgot to change my my view here. That's why we're live. Hang on, twist my neck around. Gonna get rid of my view, and we're just gonna go gallery, and I'm going to delete my... All right, everybody, we're back. There we go.
Cool.
All right, there we go.
All right.
It's all John-Angus on the screen now. We didn't need, We didn't need
no
two
pressure.
versions of me. That's just too much of this face, man. But let's talk about that's obviously one of your big songs. I've got the gold record up that you guys presented me a few years back. It's up on the wall here in the studio. We're in so tight you can't see it, but you know, I like I say, it set me up for years of coolness. From years to come. But let's talk about what's going on right now with the Trews. There's a new single. It dropped on Friday. I Want to Play. And it kind of actually, it answered, just watching the music video and listening to the lyrics, kind of answered my first question, which was, so, how was your pandemic? I guess the song kind of said it all.
It was long.
Yeah.
Long and anxious and frustrating, and I don't think we're alone in any of those feelings, but it was certainly you know, it kind of ripped our livelihoods from under us, and so many people like us, performers and entertainers and road crews and bus drivers and the guys that haul the rigs on the trucks, and everybody's just kind of out of work suddenly, and in the background there's this deadly pandemic going around. So it was a very huge collision of you know, anxieties and frustrations, and out came the song as a result. So I guess that's the silver lining.
Yeah, and you know, you have to find those silver linings, right? During these times. So was there any other silver linings other than being able to get a new song, which is awesome, by the way? I Want to Play. You can find it on all the usual streaming services. Any other silver linings?
Yeah, I mean, the time with the family. You know, I have two young sons, and my 7-year-old, he's doing online school right now, but you know, when he was about 2-3 years old, like my youngest is, I was on the road, you know, like at least half the year. And now, you know, my younger son, who's 2 and 3, this last year, I've been home every day and getting to do story time and dinner and all that kind of stuff. And it's not normal for me to be, or our family for me to be around that much. So that's been like kind of a nice surprise and very welcome time for bonding and playing and all this kind of great stuff.
That's great.
You know, at the same time, it's like, it's also like, it's just the dynamic of our family is such that I have kind of consistently gone away. So for other things, I'm sure they're just annoyed to have me around. But you know, yeah, that's a silver lining for me.
Yeah, and for me, the silver lining has been I was able to father a child. We got pregnant over the pandemic, and we just
Congratulations.
Thanks, man. Yeah, she's a week and a half old now.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I know. It's and she's at grandma's here, and she took her out for a stroll, so there was no interruptions for the podcast.
I was gonna say, how are you doing this? But yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
You need help at those young ages, man. Those are tough times.
Well, and first time dad at 40 too. I mean, that's you know, a lot of my friends in their 20s did all this, you know, and now here I am doing it, and I'm like, oh man, I'm even wearing like this elbow brace right now, like I think like I'm LeBron James or something.
What happened? What did you fall over?
Nothing, just carrying the car seat.
Okay, yeah.
That's it.
What are you? But when you're 40, I turned 40 this year. I think we're a little better at sleeping less than we were in our 20s. You know what I mean? Like that's the main thing. You just sleep a lot less. And I think I'm better equipped for that now than I was in my 20s, where I just slept until 11 all the time.
Yeah.
But you know, I felt like the older you get, the less you sleep anyway. So maybe that's a silver lining. Our drummer, Kris, had pandemic twins for the first time in his early 40s.
Awesome.
And it was like, it's been real. I mean, they're wonderful and adorable and blessings in his life, but like the day to day is like, whew, you know, he's got 2 elbow braces.
Yeah. He's got double duty there, right?
Double trouble, man. It's crazy, but he's doing great. And they're about to turn a year, I guess, in May. So yeah, like right at the beginning, you know, I hope everything went well with the birth and you were able to be close by and all that stuff.
Yeah. I was able to be in the hospital room, and it ended up in a C-section, if you can believe it. My wife went through 24 hours of labor, which then ended with the C-section. So
that sounds familiar, man. That happened to us first time around.
Wow. Oh,
yeah,
man.
I know. I know exactly what you went through. It's not easy.
And I couldn't leave the room. That's the other thing too. Like the go-to, I'd had other dads give me the advice, like, yeah, the go-to when you're in there, if you're running out of like encouraging words to say, just go get ice chips. That's the thing to do. But because of the pandemic, we had to be quarantined inside the room. I couldn't go anywhere. I couldn't go for ice chips. I just, you know, I remember sleeping on the little tiny like pull-out chair thing that they have in the room, and waking up at 2:30 in the morning, and I was kind of half out of it, and I just remember the nurse saying, "Okay, it's time now," and I woke up and I was like, "Oh, was I dreaming, or did I hear you say it's time to start pushing?" And she says, "No, it's time for the C-section." I was
Right.
like, "Oh, geez." But
man, that's identical to our first experience. It ended in an emergency section, and it was all crazy. Mind you, there wasn't a global pandemic at the time. It was 7 years ago. But yeah, I know what you lived through, and it's wild.
Yeah, but luckily everything panned out okay, and you know, my wife's bouncing back from the C-section not too bad. And Nana being here has been great to take the pressure off her as well, so that's good. What was it like? You know, and I've asked other guests this as well, Paul Langlois too. You know, like what was it like having kids? You said it was obviously you were used to sleeping in, but like you had your kid 7 years ago. Like what was it? That was, you know, touring, recording, the album cycle. What was it like having kids then? Hectic, obviously.
Well, I was kind of like, we were a bit idealistic in that, like, and it kind of worked out. You know, it goes to show anything is possible. But my wife and I kind of felt like we could merge, our family life with my road life, and we really did a lot of that, a lot more with Elliot than we ended up doing with Isaac, who's my second. But like he came on tour with us. Like he did 3 weeks in the States when he was 3 months old.
Nice.
And we just followed the bus. Like we drove our own vehicle because we had to keep our own schedule because we were getting up at like 5 a.m. and all this kind of crazy stuff. But we like sort of merged the two as much as we could to like varying degrees of success. Like, you know, some things were harder than others, and some things were harder on him and some things were harder on us. But it worked out okay. You know, the biggest thing is just not being physically present for them. And that's pretty important in those early years. So, you know, but I'm not alone. Like all the musicians that have done it have figured out ways to make it work. And at the same time, Elliot loves what Dad does, and he loves his band uncles, you know, Bunkles. And so does Isaac now. And they love coming to shows. They love being at the sound check and rating the rider and being on the bus and everything about it. And they love listening to music. So
that's perfect.
I feel like, you know, it's just what it was our circumstances to deal with, and a lot of people have different you know, sort of struggles or circumstances, and for us we just sort of made it work.
Yeah, I think about where I was at 10 years ago in my 20s or early 30s, and I'm like, I don't think I could have had kids. I really, you know, I think I'm at my age 40, I've matured enough. I've battled the demons, you know, whether it's mental health or like you said, I dropped all that weight, like 120, 130 pounds, you know, and I feel like I'm best equipped now to be a father. And it wouldn't have worked as well back then, right? And everything happens for a reason.
Yeah, 100%. I think you're 100% right to there's never a good or bad time. You know, I'll preface by saying that because some people do have babies early on in their 20s and they do just fine. Mm-hmm. But I think in my case, I needed to do some growing. You know, I was 33, I think, 32 or 33. And I felt in hindsight, I seemed ready enough. You know, there was still some challenges and there was still some things I had to learn. But 10 years before that, forget about it. It wouldn't have been right for me.
Yeah. I remember too, one of my first, if not my first, John-Angus, and you probably won't remember because I barely remember it too. One of my first interviews was you in rock radio, probably 2001, 2002. The single was "Tired of Waiting," and you guys were on a list of bands in Cornwall, Ontario, with Default, High Holy Days, Thornley, and it's like I think I look at that thing and I'm like, oh. Only Ian Thornley and you guys are still around.
It's true. It's but I remember that time, and I remember you. I don't remember that specific interview, but I remember that. I remember touring with those bands. We were playing about 200 shows a year in those days. We would just play everywhere, you know. So a lot of it is a bit blurry. But of course, I remember hanging out.
I was on your bus, doing some stuff. Yeah,
it's hard
to forget me when I was pushing like 500 pounds. I was 450, I think, at my 456 or something at my largest, right? So
wow.
Yeah, at least.
So how'd you? I mean, I don't want to digress too much here, but how'd you do it? Like, how did you manage that?
Well,
if you don't mind talking about it, I know we're live. live, so
Yeah,
just shut me down if you
no,
want
man,
to.
it's okay. I listen. Nanny's got Blair upstairs, and we're good. But no, we're So the story is, and I've detailed this on the audio episodes previous to the video version of this podcast. But I did isogenics, which is, it's one of those trendy, a shake diet things. So for dinner, it's a hypoglycemic type diet where I'm just eating vegetables, preferably chicken or fish, but, I can do beef if I want. And then during the day, it's 2 shakes for breakfast and lunch, two of these specialty shakes that they sell you.
That's not too bad. That's still enough food, I guess.
Yeah, well, I mean, trust me, when you're that large, there's a food addiction happening. You're addicted to the sugar, you're addicted to the fat, you're addicted to the McDonald's or the whatever, right? The takeout. Right. But once I was able to flush that out of my system and let my stomach shrink a little bit, man, I love quinoa stir fries. I love vegetables. I love it all. And the energy that I get from it, from losing that much weight, I have so much energy now to do so many other things with my day. It used to be that doing morning radio, you'd wake up at 3:30 and then you'd come home and you'd have to sleep all day, get up, stuff your face, and then go back to bed. Now I can stay up all day. I can do podcasts with you. I can hang out with my daughter. I can be there for my family, right? So,
And how long ago was that? Was that 10 years ago now?
No, I lost the weight at 34. Or I started isogenics at 34. So by 35, I dropped 120. And and I can confidently wear shirts that have horizontal stripes outside of the house. I don't have to shop at stores that end with big and tall anymore.
Right,
it was quite a win.
Well, good, man. I mean, you said it though with the change in diet. I think The Simpsons made a joke about if people figured out the correlation between eating well and feeling better, we're finished. Some kind of fast food joke. But I've been doing this diet for over a year. I messed my back up. I had a surgery over the summer. I've had a bad back my whole life, but it kind of came to a head as I approached 40. Go figure.
Yeah. You can't get a sleeve for that.
yeah. Too many kick drums. I basically usually throw my back twice a year. I'm laid up for a week and I move on. But last February, just a month and a half before the pandemic, I threw it and it just didn't get better. It just didn't get better. Then the pandemic happened. Then we moved houses. So the stress was building. I'm sure that's not unrelated, but it just got worse and worse and worse and worse until July. I collapsed at home, got pulled out in an ambulance, and they went in that night and shaved off some bone from my spine, took out some disc, and I was laid up in hospital for a week. But I want to bring up that to say I do this diet, and I've been doing it for about a year because I can't really exercise anymore, where I do the intermittent fasting thing, where I eat in cycles of 8 hours, and I've been doing that for over a year now, and again, for me, it's energy. I find for whatever reason, it keeps me on a steadier energy than snacking all the time or constantly having your body digesting
processing
food or whatever.
Something. Yeah. I do exactly. I do cleanse days too. That's the other thing. Although not so much lately, because the last cleanse day I had, it fires me up. It doesn't calm me down. It gives me crazy energy because you're
fasting. Are you fasting entirely?
Yeah, you're fasting and drinking a lot of water, 2, 3, 4 liters of water per day. And drinking just this berry juice 3 times a day that flushes you out, right? I find it's great for my gut biome, if you will, your bacteria. But it gets me fired up, and it depends. It's hard to dictate how that fired up is going to play out. So my wife's most recent comment, I was like, I should probably do a cleanse day this week. And she said, I don't want you on a cleanse day. I'm like, why not? She's like, the last time you had a cleanse day, you yelled at your boss on the phone and told him to F off. And I was like, all right. Okay, maybe it's a little too fired up, too much energy.
What about the sauce? Are you on or off? Is that part of your thing?
I still have a drink here and there. It's certainly not again, it's sugar, right? So I know that booze is sugar and that's going to have consequences down the line, right? But luckily, I did dry out for a little bit, and only enough to find out that it wasn't a problem. It was, it wasn't something that I needed to cut out entirely, and that I could moderate it casually in a social setting, and it wasn't a problem, right?
Totally, man. Yeah. I'm with you. I finally did a month. I've done 5 days. I've done tours. I've done a week on tour. Something we're just testing your boundaries. But January 2020, I decided I wouldn't drink in January. 31 days, longest I've done. And I think a lot of things. I felt great for 2 weeks, and then the last 2 weeks, I was like, a lot of things I was maybe chalking up to booze is just like what's going on in my head anyway. Things I would blame on a hangover, just like, oh, maybe I just had to work on my anxiety or some shit.
Yeah.
So then I realized I'd be able to reintroduce it, and then we had the pandemic, and I was like, I wasted a whole month. I could have been going out, and if I had only known I'd be home for a year or more, I would have picked a different time.
Yeah,
I do recommend it. I recommend that testing yourself to see if it is a problem and how it's influencing you.
Yeah, for sure. And that's funny because after the start of the year, I did have a resolution, but it wasn't regarding booze. It was regarding cannabis, and it wasn't so much how much of it or whether I was or not. It was more so the device that I was using. I quit the bong. I quit smoking out of a bong because I mean, listen. It stinks. It smells. It sits in the corner.
It's a lot of smoke.
Yeah, it stinks up the garage. Anyways, I'm on the vape now. So far, so good. What is it? April the 27th today. So,
are you a daily smoker?
Well, yesterday, no, I didn't smoke at all yesterday.
Okay.
Because again, or vape or whatever. But because I'm busy. I got a baby, and I'm not going to be vaping in one hand and swaddling in the other. Like, I'm not that dad. You know what I mean? Like,
sure.
My wife reads this blog. I think it's called Ganja Moms. And she's like, Ganja Mom says it's okay. I'm like, no, it's not okay. It's fine.
Yeah. Well, it's just kind of mixing your moods a bit, because you got to kind of be hyper vigilant with especially when they start moving around, like if they're being baked doesn't lend itself to hypervigilance.
Yeah, no, for sure it doesn't. I still am amazed at Ross Ribliati, the snowboarder, and I'm like, holy shit, he won a gold medal on weed? Like, that's crazy.
Should have been a platinum medal.
Yeah, right? Immediately, I had this poll on my Twitter earlier, John-Angus, Twitter and Facebook, and I asked people to guess as to who my guest was today. And this is the wording that I had, and it was, I've got the guitar player from one of the most consistently great Canadian rock bands of the last 20 years on the podcast. Any guesses as to who it might be? Immediately people guessed John-Angus from the Trews.
Wow.
And I guess that confirms it. You guys are consistently great.
Well, thanks for framing it that way. We sure appreciate it. We appreciate our fans for consistently showing up.
Well, that helps too.
That's the part that really blows us away. And we have fans that have seen us 200 times, and we really don't take that for granted. And again, you ask about silver linings of the pandemic. We all had to get tech savvy. Here I am with an audio interface and a webcam and a mic for my online thing. And if it asked me to do this a year and a half ago, I wouldn't know where to start. But this has become the only way for us to connect with the outside world and our fans. Colin's been live streaming almost weekly for people on our Facebook and Instagram, and people have really stayed in contact and there's a two-way street of communication going on with our fans thanks to social media. So that's kind of been a bit of a silver lining too. Yeah.
Anyways, my next question was, what's the secret? But that's the secret. The fans, right?
Well, the fans is the secret. You do have to really keep working. You have to stay focused on your music. And because that is the prime mover of the relationship. I mean, I think if you're turning out crap, then people would find somebody else to listen to pretty quick. And so we really do try to work really hard on the music when it's time to do that as well. When we have an album coming up, we try to write as much as we possibly can. We try to be self-critical about, how an idea can be better. We welcome outside feedback from producers and trusted sources and that kind of thing. Because I think that you start to believe your own press, that we couldn't possibly turn out a dud, but of course anybody's capable of that. So we try to keep a high bar when it's just us working in a room and in the studio. And then when you go out and you're live, then just to have fun. Because I think that at the end of the day, that's what that is. That's fun for people. And we try to create that environment.
The new song, I Want to Play, sweet guitar solo. You're doing the taps and everything on there.
That was for Eddie.
Yeah, I was going to say, was that an Eddie Van Halen thing?
Yeah. I mean, I was born in 1980. So by the time I was early teens, it was grunge. The world had moved on from tapping. So I never really learned that style. Slash and Kurt Cobain and Peter Buck and even Noel Gallagher. I liked these guys. I missed the hair metal of the 80s. So I never really learned that style. But we were writing the song. We wrote it in September. We were demoing it in October. And while we were demoing it up here in my attic, I have a little studio that I built up here. Somebody mentioned that he had passed away, and it kind of gutted me, because it was so unexpected. I mean, I guess people that followed him knew he was sick, but I sort of wasn't following. And I just deep dived into how amazing he was and how much he influenced the instrument. I mean, like, there's very few players that changed the course of an instrument.
Yeah.
Hendrix did it, and Eddie Van Halen did it, and like Les Paul did it for the electric guitar, but very few others like really changed the whole course of it. You know what I mean, with their style. So it kind of blew me away, and it happened the week we were demoing I Want to Play, and I was like, you know what? I've never tapped. If I'm going to ever tap on a record, it's going to be in tribute to Eddie, and everything he did for the guitar. And it was done in earnest. Like, I wasn't trying to be, like, I've heard Weezer do it, and it kind of feels like they're being ironic or something.
Everything Weezer does, it seems that it's sort of ironic or a play on something. Yeah. Yeah.
We toured with them once, and they were good guys, but but sometimes when I hear it, I'm thinking, like, are they being facetious? I can't tell.
Yeah.
But anyway, I did it as an honest to goodness tribute to one of the greatest guitar players that ever lived, and just another tragic kick in the gut that was 2020, 2021. Because the thing that kind of makes me upset is to think that, like, some of these great guys, Toots Hibbert and John Prine, who died from the virus, and then Eddie Van Halen, who died from cancer, but still they spent their last years not being able to go play for people or like just hold up at home, and that's not anybody's fault, but it sure is kind of sad, So if there's some small way to pay tribute to such a legend, then I tried to do it.
Yeah, no, it's great, and I will say though, it is my second favorite John-Angus guitar solo, next to first record Fleeting Trust. I still love that solo for some reason, man.
Thank you.
The way it comes in, it's great. Man. It's
a little bit more Angus Young in that one.
Yeah, I was gonna say there's a different an Angus of a different sort.
Exactly. Well, I love him too.
Yeah. Now, I'm so glad also that you wore a hat, because every time I see an Instagram, you're just like, you've got the best hat game. Your hat game is always on point. What makes a great hat? Where do you shop?
Well, this is, I should plug, they're called Coup d'Etat, and his signature is that little branding mark cut that he does. But he does custom stuff. He's out of Toronto, a guy named Jay. But coup d'etat, it's the French phrase. You can Google it if you want to look into his stuff. It's really great. I don't know. I don't know what makes a great hat. I mean, you have to feel good in it, I think. Yeah. That's the main thing, especially if you're going to perform in it. You can't feel insecure or too self-conscious.
Like a mustache, you
gotta own it.
Yeah, the mustache can't wear you. You have to wear the mustache. Same with a hat.
I tried wearing a mustache and it definitely wore me. So I need the balancing act. But
well, I remember the beard too. You had the big kind of beard for a while too. That was a good look.
Yeah, I stopped doing that when they started turning a little bit gray. I stopped growing them out so far. I don't want to give too much away,
Yeah, well, I'm nice and clean shaven today for the same reason. I started to notice a few little things, and I'm like, okay, we're gonna take that down a bit. Lastly, a couple of more things here. We're going to wrap this up in a few here, John-Angus, but Revive the Rose. You've been doing some producing. I remember too, and I don't know if anyone knows this, but some of the early Gloria Sun stuff, you helped produce that stuff, and now you're in with Revive the Rose. I was just checking out their new single too. Awesome, man.
Yeah, thanks, man. But production for me started out as like, me in my band, I would be the guy that was asking the producer all the questions and like annoying him, sitting right next to him at the chair as
soaking
he mixed.
It in, yeah.
Yeah. And then that led to like a natural curiosity to want to do it. So around the time of our 2014 record, the Gloria Suns were one of the first bands really that I took into the studio. I met them. They were opening for us in Barrie. And I was like, hey, you guys ever work with a producer? And they were like, what's a producer? So this was like very early days for them. They were still, jamming in the garage. They had no sort of industry connections yet. And so I took them in the studio. We did Mama. And that was the first time they'd ever been in a studio. It was one of my first times ever producing. And that song went in the top 10, and it's still sort of one of their most loved kind of tunes. So that led to me doing the EP and then the first record. And then that sort of opened a lot of doors because the band subsequently did so well that a lot of people would call me up and want to work. So I've done quite a lot of stuff in the last like 6 or 7 years. And then, the Revive the Rose is just one of the more recent ones. We beginning in 2020, we cut those songs, and there's going to be a couple more come out. They're a great band from Welland, Ontario.
Awesome. Well, shout out to Revive the Rose and shout out to the Glorious Sons. Boys,
I love those guys. We still talk, I still talk to the boys often, we exchange texts. I drove out to see Brett in September. We worked on some music and, big love for those guys.
Yeah, for sure. I always got great things to say about Brett, especially he still to this date has made the most appearances on this podcast. When I was living in Kingston, I would just get like a random text and he'd be like, "Hey man, I'm just walking down Princess Street. You want to do a podcast?" And he'd just show up with a guitar with like a piece of baler twine on the guitar, like wrapped over his shoulder. And he'd just come up and be like, "I just wrote this song and can I perform it on your podcast?" I'm like, "Yes, you can. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Come on in."
Yeah, he's the real deal, man.
Yeah.
I can't say enough good things about him as a songwriter. He's 100% legit.
Yeah, and Kris Koster now with the Glorious Sons. I was talking to Kris the other day. He's going to be on an upcoming podcast. He's working on some solo material, so he wants to get that together before he comes back on the pod, and he wants to have something to talk about and promote. But always love hanging and chatting. I'm glad we've reconnected. It's been a while. I think the last time I saw you was at the Horseshoe Tavern, but there was a hockey game on, so, you got to respect the Canadiana of the Toronto Maple Leafs, right?
Totally. You following this year?
Not at all, man. I've been following the Raptors, actually.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, which, man, they smoked Golden State a couple of weeks ago, and I was like, that's what I'm talking about, yeah.
It's been an exciting couple of years to be a Raptors fan, let me tell you.
Yeah.
Last season was amazing.
Yeah.
But.
Well, I wish you guys all the best with the new single. Check it out. It's streaming everywhere. I Want to Play. It's also on YouTube as well. If you want to check out the music video, see those taps for real. And, by the way, John-Angus does a wicked slide. I see you slide in on the ice.
On the ice, yeah. Well, we shot it. I don't know if we talked about the video yet. We shot it in an empty Cops Coliseum in Hamilton. So we thought it sort of spoke to the moment to put on this like epic arena rock video, but have 0 people in the stands, because that's exactly what life is like right now. It's a fun watch, and it stars the late great Bob Lamwa, who passed away 2 weeks after we shot it, playing the janitor. So rest in peace, Bob, and check it out.
Awesome. John-Angus from the Trews as well. The whole band, everybody's good, by the way, before we wrap. Everybody's good.
Yeah,
in the
they're
band,
good, man. Like, everybody's in the same boat, but we're keeping tabs on each other and trying to stay positive and looking for those bright spots on the horizon, which are popping up here and there. So I'm getting vaccinated tomorrow. So that's something to look forward to.
I got vaccinated last week. I got the jab, and I kind of got in on a technicality, I guess, because they were like, if you're over a certain weight or something. I got the fatso clause. That's what.
But didn't they lower it to 40 last week? Like, now aren't we just old guy clause?
Oh yeah, I guess so. Yeah,
that's how I got in. So
I got double clause then. Yeah. Anyway.
I never was so excited to be a 40-year-old.
Yeah, finally it has some pluses.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you again, and don't forget to subscribe, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and thanks to our podcast sponsor and Retrokat.ca. Again, use the promo code bigkrislive, Kris with a K, for $10 off, and DeanBlundell.com, the little devil sitting on my shoulder, Dean Blundell, and our podcast network. Thanks again, John-Angus.
All right. Take care.